for this week, I will be in Bowling Green, which is sure to be a great game between Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky. It's the two preseason favorites facing off against each other, the first conference game of the season. It's going to be an exciting game.
It's tough because, you usually have a couple of preseason games to get the kinks out, but now both coaches, you're the favorites and now you got to meet. It's very difficult. And I think Western Kentucky right now is saying, wait a minute, last season we only scored 10 points against Louisiana Tech because Louisiana Tech won the game. But that was Western Kentucky's last loss of the season. It's going to be tough because the coaches have been preparing for this for a long time, but all of a sudden, this is a huge game, a lot of emotion, and both teams have to play to their capabilities. It's going to be fun. People in Bowling Green are going to love this one.
Now, Florida Atlantic lost a close game in overtime at Tulsa in their season opener, but this week the Owls return home to open at home against Miami, who pitched a shutout in their season debut last week.
Well, there's a couple of things that stand out in this game. Number one, you've got to forget last week's loss. That is tough, but the good thing they have going for them is a lot of these players weren't recruited by Miami. They're going to play with a little chip on their shoulder. They're going to say, hey, listen, you should have signed me. You didn't even look at me. So this is a big game. And also, I think right now for FAU, they scored 25 points more a game at home than they did on the road. That's got to give them a little bit of confidence. But this is a big game, I think, because you want to forget about last week. You're playing somebody that's not too far away from where you are. I think they've got to come out and play hard from the very, very beginning of this game.
Now, Marshall hosted Purdue at home this past week, but they'll play their first road game against Ohio this week.
Well, you're going up against a great coach at Ohio in Frank Solich, the former Nebraska coach, who all he did every year is win 9 and 10 games and they let him go. Frank Solich is an outstanding coach. His team is going to be ready to play. Marshall, you just got done having a big win at home, big crowd. Now you're playing a team that maybe doesn't get the notoriety of a Purdue. You've got to overcome that. You've got to get your mindset, and that is huge. You can't come out lethargic, not only on Saturday, but also during practice. You've got to come out and play hard, and I think this is kind of a tough game for Marshall. I think they're going to win, don't get me wrong, but I'm anxious to see their attitude in this football game.
Now, North Texas actually started their season with their bye week, so now they have to play straight through the season. They travel to Dallas to play SMU, who actually had a very good game against Baylor this past weekend.
I tell you what, North Texas, the schedulers were not kind to them, and that's a concern, I think, for Dan McCarney and company, because now you don't have a chance to heal any of your injuries throughout the rest of the season. But it did give them a chance to look at SMU a lot against Baylor. SMU played a very good first half against the Bears. Now, are they going to have an emotional letdown? But I think for North Texas right now, you've satisfied as far as your quarterback situation is concerned. McNulty's going to be quarterbacking. That was a big key. Last year was musical chairs for a number of different reasons. But you've got to come out and play hard. Defensively, they've got to do better. They've got to be able to go against that attack of SMU, because SMU thinks this is a winnable game for them. They got to get the bad taste out of their mouth, but I think North Texas has got to forget about it being the first game, just go out and play football.
Now, FIU had a big victory on the road against Central Florida last week. They go back on the road this week to take on Indiana.
And it's a tough game because, all of a sudden you got back-to-back road games. The good news is down later in the season you're going to play a lot of home games. But you're going up against an Indiana team that was pretty impressive in their opening win. And they've got a guy running the football that Conference USA fans may be very familiar with. Jordan Howard, of course, he was outstanding at UAB last season with Bill Clark as their head coach. Then when the school went through the dumping of the football programs, he transferred to Indiana. What did he do last week? Well, he showed his mettle. 3 touchdowns, 145 yards rushing, and I think they've got to stop him. That's going to be the key of the ball game.
Now this week there are 3 matchups between CUSA schools and Big 12 opponents, one of which is Rice traveling to Austin to take on Texas for the first time since 2011.
This is a winnable game for Rice. See, the problem is when you play Texas, especially when you play them at Darrell K. Royal Stadium, everybody's intimidated. You walk out and you see it's going to be 100,000 people or whatever dressed in orange. You see the band, you see Bevo drooling on the sideline, and everybody gets really intimidated. You can't be intimidated, folks. You just got to go out there and play some smash mouth football. This is a winnable game. Why? Texas is last in offense in the country right now. They're getting a little antsy down in Austin. They're saying, who's going to be our quarterback? We got to have this guy. We got to have this guy. Rice just has to go in. Dreyfus Jackson has to go in as quarterback of Rice and just do the job that he's done. I think this is a winnable game for Rice.
Now here's a look at the full schedule for week 2 of games. Ron, which game will you be calling this week?
We're going to be doing the Southern Miss game, and I'm really looking forward against Austin Peay. Of course, everybody knows Austin Peay. Fly Williams back in the 70s. We won't tell you what the chant was, but that's going to be a good game, I think, for Southern Miss, because I saw, watching tape of Southern Miss last week, they're a lot better than people are giving them credit for. Todd Monken has done a good job, and these guys have a chance to get that bitter taste out of your mouth of the loss last week. It's going to be a fun game to watch, I think.